Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Today's Shiur is being sponsored. Lilu Nishmas, my father-in-law's yard side, Avram Aleik Ben Meir Alevi. Avram Aleik Ben Meir Alevi, thank you. Struly Bernstein, not Bornstein. Last time this tzaddik sponsored, I said maybe Struly Bornstein, but after I mentioned that Vart from Struly Bornstein, and many people want to know where it was, it's in some the tzlach, which is also Noida B'Yehuda. Some say I have to get the exact thing. I put it on the chat group. From Cedarhurst, New York, the neshama should have an aliyah, sponsored anonymously. Could you stop with anonymous, please? Rabbi Sai, we need to know who you are, so we put a face here. If that 80-year-old yesterday, his email wasn't anonymous, it would have been so much more powerful. Sponsored anonymously in honor of my wife. Read this. Tell me if I'm crazy. In honor of my wife and kids, and that they should get on the bus to school. The wife and the kids should get on the bus to school and have a great year. No, I know what he means. He actually wrote in that we don't even need it. It's already done. It's a done deal. His kids are on the bus. And in honor of Yosef and Yeshua, finally somebody that gets it right. Yosef and Yeshua. Baruch Hashem. Okay, next. Sponsored by Steve Rappaport on the wedding tonight. I don't know how to read this exactly. Mazel Tov on the wedding tonight. Our granddaughter Rina Tetzali Silver. She's the daughter of Sam and Bashi Wainhouse. Sam is an avid MDY fan and got me hooked. Yishkoyach, Mazel Tov, and of course, l'schus refuah shleima for Alti Yerachmiel ben Yocheved. Alti Yerachmiel ben Yocheved. This is also an anonymous sponsor, I believe. I wish we could say the name. I believe it's actually a woman who's sponsoring this. That's what I saw in the thing. Alti Yerachmiel ben Yocheved is the father's on Zoom twice a day. I see him twice a day. He's hidden in there somewhere in the hospital, watching twice a day from the hospital. Unbelievable. So his son should have refuah shleima, should be conscious again and have a complete refuah shleima. Real quickly, email from Eruvin Turk. Dear Eli, I've been watching on YouTube Daf Yomi for over 5 months now. Enjoy your presentation, inclusion of the followers, and warm and personal interaction with your viewers. Would like to recommend that you could do through WhatsApp is to include a picture of your viewers who send in emails on your presentation. This would give us an opportunity to see you sending in emails. Keep up the good work. Doing a great job. So yeah, I mean the point of the emails, a big point of it, give us chizuk, but also to get to know people. So yeah, exactly yesterday, Jonathan Stefansky sent in this picture of him relaxing by a pool. You see it over there? There's a pool over there, but what is he doing? The tzaddik is learning Torah. He actually asked me a good kasha yesterday. I want another voice message I got this morning, very interesting. So it seems like Gary, behind the scenes, is looking for some camera or something. So he calls up Yisrael Goldstein, who also watches the Shiur twice a day. He's on Zoom both days, and that's why he ruins it for me, because at night I can't say the same jokes I say in the morning. It's a whole problem. So he calls him up and says, listen, I need somebody really good for a certain camera. So he says, okay, So he calls up some guy in the camera department, and the guy says, for what? He says, it's a Shiur in Israel. He says, what Shiur? I watch a Shiur in Israel. It turns out that this Satmar Chassid from Monroe watches our Shiur. And he says, of course I know Gary. Gary Vada, tell him to give me a call. It's a small world. Last one. We'll do this real quickly. My name is Binyamin Kessler. My brother Eliezer Kessler, I believe that's the guy from Houston, Texas. Tried to convince me to learn Daf Yomi, Bekitzer, and shrugged it off. So then he logged into YouTube after Shabbos, played the first Shiur of Eruvin, couldn't fall back asleep, listened to the first Shiur Brachas. Well, I was hooked. And I like this part. I'm a mechanic for the Department of Sanitation in New York City. You know those white, ugly trucks in New York City? He's the guy that fixes them. I don't know what he does over there, but he works the night shift. It's unbelievable. Here, mechanic for the Department of Sanitation, learning the Daf Yomi while he's doing his stuff over there. After finishing up my work, full day and fill out my paperwork, your YouTube Shiur comes online. I pull out the Gemara, pop in my headphones, and I learn the Daf. Thank you for making the Daf enjoyable for me, and atzlacha to you and all the members of the MDY Chevra and all that they do. P.S. was the Yom Shabbos Shiur that finally helped me understand the true practical concept of pi, binyamin, Kessler, Yishkoyach, and just thinking about B&H. There's at least, I don't know, maybe 4 guys that I know of that watch over there. But B&H is a great place to watch because it seems like Yisrael Goldstein tells me he watches about 5 hours worth of Daf Yomi a day. So B&H, look them up. It's a good place to work. Rabbi Sai, we're starting a brand new parak. Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. We're going to do a small sugya and then we're going to get into the Agadita. Eli Nishma Simi Mirasi Yeruspas Mordechai. And the parak is Oisin Pasim Libirois. The simple meaning of birois is a be'er, a well, smack in the middle of the Rishus Rabbim, and they made a special kula because just for oile regel. Oile regel, or when it's very necessary for Klal Yisrael to draw water on Shabbos, you could make these L-shaped brackets. Now, what's so special about these L-shaped brackets? Why is it any different than, let's say, the strings that we discussed yesterday, the ropes? Because this is parutz merubal ha'omed. You have way more opening than closed. In fact, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, all these halachas don't even appear in Shulchan Aruch. None of this appears there. It appears in the Rambam. Because this is not important to us, bismanenu. First of all, we have sinks, but we don't have alil regel. That's even more important. So it's not in Shulchan Aruch, it's not in the Geil Maisa. But the Rambam's bringing you Lasid Lavai or any other sort of usage that you can make of it. And it's Torah, we have to learn it. But it's not brought down halacha l'maisa. Oisem pasim labirois. You can make these L-shaped brackets for your well in the middle of Rishus Rabbim. How do you do it? Arba yumdin nir kishmayna. So if you have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but they look like 8 because each one is double. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Meir Omer shmayna nirim kishnei masar. So the Gemara is going to explain what we're talking about. It's a little wider, but if you look closely, there's a simple one over here, not an L shape, just a piece of wood. So you add another 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, for a total of 12. Arba the yumdin va'arba pshutim, as the Gemara is going to explain, the yumdim is a lashon of 2, the yumdin. Where's your stroll? See, on today, I just wanted to point out that you can actually read the signs behind me now because I put down the shade. You don't have that glare. He was telling me it's the lens, which he was right. Okay, fine. All these diyumdim are 10 tefach high. V'rechavam shisha, and each piece of the L is 6 tefachim wide. In other words, an amma. It's an amma by an amma, 10 tefachim tall. The avion kolshu, they could be thin like silver foil. There's no thickness to it. Wow, what's going on here? The measurement is enough to put in 6 cows. Over here I have 8 because that's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up. That's the next line. I don't want to print 2 pictures. So 3 and 3. Each cow takes up an amma and 2/3. So 6 times 1 and 2/3 equals 10. So Reb Meir says that the opening, the gap between diumid and diumid is exactly 10 amas. Why? Because typically I bring in 3 cows at a time. They're connected by their neck with this fancy device here, you could see. So I bring them in to drink, and as they're leaving, maybe 3 more are going to be coming in. I don't want these cows to knock over the diumid. You have to start playing around with it on Shabbos. So I need to give them enough room for 6 cows to come in. 3 coming in, 3 leaving. It's 8 cows. So 8 times 1 and 2/3 equals 13 and 1/3. So his opening is 13 and 1/3. Kshuros, they're all tied together. V'loy mutaros. And not just because you got to tighten them up. They got to be together. However, achas nechneses, achas yoitzes. So here's the concept of soichakois, or like the Litvaks like to say sheichakois, sheichakes. But it's a sin. Soichakois, they are smiling, they are laughing, versus otsev. These are the concept. Otsev means you're sad, so your lips are closed, so it's together. Soichakois, you're smiling, so your lips are slightly open. Here's the same idea that they're not in the same direction, meaning you have a little bit leeway. There's room for them to come in and out, and it gives you a little bit more room. So your 10 amos are not otze amos, rather the soichakois amos. They're slightly larger. You're allowed to come closer. You're allowed to narrow this down. You want to make this diumah closer? Great, it works. And you're, on the flip side, you're allowed to make it further away. What are the conditions? Here, in the first picture you can see, you need to be able to fit a cow, most of its body, like by a sukkah. You want most of the cow to be able to fit in there so that you don't have to chase it out and bring water to it you might carry outside of the diumah. Now, real quickly, again, what is a well? A well is a Rosh Hashanah because it's 10 tefachim deep into the ground, and that's why we have to do this diumah. That's why it would be usher typically to take water out of your well, which is Rosh Hashanah, and bring the water into the Rosh Hashanah. So we made a whole area to be a Rosh Hashanah. Don't make that area too narrow, because you might come to pull the water outside of that area into the Rosh Hashanah. Mutar, says the Mishnah, Daf Yudches Amud Aleph on top, Laharchik Kolshu. Kolshu over here does not mean like we always use the word. Kolshu means a mashu. Kolshu means as much as you want. You can make your diumdim 500 feet wide. Ubavachi yarbe bepasim. Just make sure that every 10 amos, according to Reb Meir, you have another piece of wood. Every 13.3 amos, according to Reb Yehuda, you have a piece of wood. But you have to have wood. Here's a riddle. Think about this for the rest of the Amud. What? I know you guys are going to be slamming the chat now. What was the last thing created in Sheshes Yimei Bereshis? Nachman Stelzer knows this for sure. Ubevachi yirbe bepasim. Rest is not a creation. Boy, give me. Soup is a creation. If that was from Avi Mandelbaum, soup is a creation, not rest. Zog the Gemara ubevachi yarbe bepasim. Says the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad beiso osayim. So Rabbi Yehuda says not true. You can't go forever, but you could go 100 amma. 100 amma is a lot. 200 feet. 200 feet by 50 amma by 100. 100 by 200 feet. That you could do with a bunch of pasim. Omer lo Omer beiso osayim ela legina o lekarfaf. I didn't. You know what? Let me show you the picture straight, and I didn't have time to print this.
Totally lit up that chat.
What did you say? Okay. Sorry. Pay attention, Rabbi Isai. Forget the chat. The chat is not learning. You're gonna miss this. Here's a karfav. It's a nice picture. I want to show you this picture if you could see it. Basically, it's a fence out of the city where you store your wood. The point is that it's not a residential use. It's not something versus a well, which is residential. You need the water. Water is for humans. That is you storing some wood somewhere else. Gina, a garden that's not attached to your house. So this idea of limiting you to 2 saw is a limit on non-residential use. But if it's like a barn, what type of barn, says Rashi? Also a picture he has there, not important. A guy takes he fences in an area in his field, and he puts his animals there so they fertilize his field, the best fresh fertilization on the spot, and then he moves it from field to field as necessary. Oisar, this is like a real barn, like where you put your animals. Oy mukta, remember we had mukta is a backyard that you store your stuff in the backyard. Oy chatzer, afilu beis, chameshes kurim, how much is a kur? 30 saw. 30 saw is 15 times 2. It's way more than 2 saw. But chameshes kurim is 150 saw. It's 75 times the amount of that we're talking about. In other words, it's unlimited. Afilu beis asara kurim, 300 saw. 150 times what we're talking about. Mutar. So you can go on forever. The point is, you can take a piece of wood, here, all these pieces, more wood, one by one by one. Every 10 amas, less than 10 amas, you put another piece of wood, you go on forever. Says the Gemara, a real short sugi here, that when the Mishnah mentions oisen pasim labirois, you make these wooden things or whatever they're made out of, these L-shaped brackets for a well. The Gemara is going to say that you can't force the Mishnah into any shita. You could get around everything. In other words, the Mishnah is not excluding anyone. We have 2 or 3 shitas here; they're not excluded. Perhaps you'll say that the Mishnah doesn't go like Chananya. Why? What did Chananya do already? The Sanya oisem pasim lebar, b'chavalim l'shayara. Tanakama says the only time a L-shaped bracket works is for a bar. Now a bar and a well are very different. One is a pit, one is a well. A well naturally has water coming out; it's never ending. A pit, you gather water there. One day it'll dry out. But that's not the point right now. The point is that this dispensation of L-shaped brackets is only for a pit, for water. And when do you use ropes? When you want to make an inferior fence, because you're on your way, you're in the middle of a desert, use ropes. L-shaped bracket won't work over there. L-shaped bracket is problematic because it has way too much empty space. You don't have solid. You have 10 amas of openness. It's parotz merubal ha'oimen. The Chananya oimer comes Chananya and says chavolim lebar avaloi pasim. L'chayr, he argues on our Mishnah. He says you don't do pasim. Period. There's no pasim. This idea of L-shaped brackets doesn't exist. Says the Gemara, not a good kasha. Afilu teim Chananya. Our Mishnah could go like Chananya. Bar lechud, be'er lechud. When it comes to a well, you could do pasim. Our Mishnah is talking about wells, so we'll agree that you could do L-shaped brackets. He just said don't do brackets when it comes to a pit. Why? Because a pit could dry out, and once it's dry, there's no water. Then Chachamim never allowed you to do pasin, and you're going to use it with the pasin when it's dry, and that's a problem. We don't want you to. So don't use brackets at all when you have a pit. Only for a well that has natural spring, it comes from the ground. Ikeda Amri. Since he didn't differentiate between the two, so the Gemara is just saying it from a different angle. He just said it. He didn't say that there's a difference. So perhaps Chananya holds that there is no difference between a bar and a be'er. Chavalim in pasin loy. You can never use the L-shaped brackets even for a well. Perhaps it doesn't go like Chananya or Mishnah. Chananya does go. But what did Tanakama say? Not in the Mishnah. Right here, we started off the sign. Oisim pasim libar. The Tanakama talks about a pit, not a well. On that, Chananya says you are wrong. You don't do a L-shaped bracket for a bar. But on the Mishnah, he never argued. The Mishnah is not talking about a bar. The Mishnah is talking about be'erois. Pasim libe'erois. Not be'erois, be'erois. So be'erois are wells. He'll agree that you could do L-shaped brackets. Perhaps our Mishnah doesn't go according to Rebbe Akiva. It does go according to Rebbe Akiva. What does Rebbe Akiva say? It's not. So he makes one category. He says, if it's a well, it doesn't matter if it's for the public or for the individual. You have to put the ber ha'yachid and ber ha'rabim together. And he says, bar ha'rabim. A pit, yes, for the rabbim. What's so special about rabbim versus individual? Because rabbim will remind each other. If it dries out, people say, hey, can't eat the bar today. It's dry. So we're not so concerned that people will use it with the pasim. So he says you could do oisin lem pasim, you could use pasim even for a pit, as long as it's for rabbim, but not for the yachid. Av a bar, hayachid oisin loy, mechitza gavay asar tfachim, he can't use pasim. He has to do a real mechitza. Divrei Rebbe Akiva. V'ilachid tani lebirois, lebirois in, lebaris loy. In our Mishnah's mashma, excuse me, that for the rabbim you can't use for pits. You can't do a pit even for the rabbim. Rebbe Akiva says you could use a pit for the rabbim. They're going to remind each other. And our Mishnah doesn't talk about a bar. Only talks about a well. I feel like Rebbe Akiva. Be'er ma'im chayim. You guys know about Be'er ma'im chayim, right? Well, most of the world doesn't. I'm saying most of the world, which is Borough Park and Williamsburg, they know a Be'er Mayim Chaim. The rest of the out-of-town world doesn't know. But anyways, there's a soda called Be'er Mayim Chaim, and there's one of my favorite songs. The Avera song talks about this Be'er Mayim Chaim. You have to have Be'er Mayim Chaim at every Shalom Zachar. Otherwise, it's not a Jewish thing. Be'er Mayim Chaim, the Psikale. So you have a Be'er Mayim Chaim. I guess they got it from this Gemara. Be'er Mayim Chaim. A Rebbitzin, that was down for a purpose because we can't read the behind me. Shkoyach, I'll tell you when to stop. Hold on. It's ruined for life. No, it's good, it's good, it's good. Okay, good. Now, thanks. Be'er Mayim Chaim de Psikale. Loishna de Rabbim, but Loishna de Yachid. So Rabbi Akiva just wanted to say simple halachas, things that are there's no distinction between a Rabbim and a Yachid. He just said one flat out halacha. A Be'er, you could always put pasim. He don't want to go into, a bar, if it's the public, yes, if it's the Yachid, not. So he just said one halacha, but don't bring a raya that it's a steer to our mission. Listen the Rabbim, listen the Yachid Tani. Bar mechunasin lepsikale, a bar which is not a clear-cut halacha, like it Tani. Okay. They must listen like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Perhaps we'll say that the mission doesn't go according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. This nan, it says, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Omer. I tricked you a little bit. I told you that the whole daf is a gad. Okay, my bad. We're getting there. In a minute we'll be there. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Omer, Einoisim pasim elu ber harabim v'vad. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says you don't do pasim only for one category. That's the rabbim and a be'er. Not even a be'er for a yachid. It has to be a well and for the public. In our mission it says birais. Doesn't distinguish between individual and the public. Says the Gemara, like we're on a roll. The Mishnah could go according to everybody. Even though if you take all the shittas together, they won't fit into the Mishnah. But each individual could fit into the Mishnah. There's no proof from the Mishnah against any one individual. Says the Gemara, my birois is the alma. We're not talking about we're talking about birois of the world and not the rabbim versus the yachid. And here goes the agadata. My diyumdim. What does diyumdim, the word diyumdim mean? Diyoi amudim. Diyoi is two, amudim are poles, are, what's the better word? Pillars, maybe. Diyoi amudim. Diyoi two. And once we say the word diyoi means two, now this takes us on a tangent of agadita. What's the simon over here? Diyoi, limonada, lemonade, shevach, no, it's menuda, not lemonade. Shevach, zoynes, niskalkel, bemida. Although the gain, it's very interesting that these simonim are very important because the gain has a different way of reading it. So on the side you'll see. So it's important. It's part of the Gemara. So that's why I'm reading it. Niskalkel, bemida, shloisha, simon. It's a way to remember that gadita. Not awesome. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kolashisim pturim. All figs are potter, but these are not just figs. These are inferior figs. These are terrible. They don't taste good. They're worthless. Pturim, they're potter from meiser, in other words, from demai. If I buy a bunch of figs, shisim figs from an amaretz, I don't have to be concerned that he tried to save a buck by not being by taking meisers because their value is so low. Even amaretz has no problem taking trumas and meisers from it, and therefore, if I'm going to buy it from the amaretz, I don't have to be concerned. He already took the meiser. Kol shisim pturim chutz min ad-yoifra. Diyoy again. Diyum din. Diyoifra. What does diyoifra mean? Diyoifra, I do have to take meiser. They have value. What does it mean? My diyoifra amrula ilana oisa diyoy peres b'shana. It gives out two. What's the word? No, whatever. How come nobody's here next to me? Give me a. Huh? Fruit. No. No, like two whole things of fruit. Huh? Crops is a better word, but for fruit. There must be a harvest maybe. Two harvests? Okay, whatever the word is. Where's Nachman Seltzer? Shalom Aleichem? No, not here today. Avi, lawyer, something. Lo mishane, we're going weiter. My diyoifra, Amar Ula, Illinois, diyoy peres lipshana.
Clusters for grapes.
What about grapes? Cluster for grapes?
Clusters would be used
clusters. Yeah. Two. What's the? It's with the P. Two. Product. Two. No. Okay. Fine. Next. Two produce. I don't think that was the word I was looking for, but it's still with the P. Amar Rabbi Yerim ben Elazar. The parts of Panim Hayalei Adam Rishon. So we're going on a major sugi here about Adam Rishon. And most of the sugi we had word for word in brachas. So if it sounds familiar, it's because we learned it literally word for word. Adam Harishon had two faces. Now over here, two faces, l'chayra means two bodies. We use back to back with Chava, his wife, not just his face. Shenemar, Achar v'kedem tzartani. In Tehilim it says, "You created me back and forth." So I had a front and a back. That's how it was created. The ksiv. Vayiven Hashem Elokim es hatzela. So like everybody understands that Adam had a rib. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out a rib. Over here, it's not in the Gemara at all. Although I did find it in Shmuel says in the Medrash that it is a rib. Actually, the Targum uses the word rib. No, what's funny? They're saying funny things in the chat. Okay, I guess. Can you share with me? Share with me. What? It's not something shareable.
They keep going with the parcels, and then Jules put in some politics. Two-faced like Richard Nixon.
Got it. We're talking about two bodies here. Almost like Siamese twins, Rahman al-Islam. Back to back. The Targum uses a lashon of ilah. In Chumash, if you look, he does translate the word tzela as literal a rib. Our sugi is, it doesn't say that. We're talking about two bodies. Now, the Gemara is going to go bring a few psukim to see how it fits in. If you say that Adam and Chava were created back to back, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu chopped them down the middle, it makes a lot of sense in Tehilim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a front and a back. Oh, sorry, did I skip here? Rabbi Shmuel, Chad Omer Partzuf, v'Chad Omer Zanov. One of the two say it was back to back. The other one says Zanov. It's interesting. I just noticed now that it's the same Shmuel that says in the Medrash that it's a tzela. Oh, wow. So how is that better for Zanov or better for Partzuf? I don't know. Both of them don't work for Shmuel. I don't know. Okay. So according to the Malam, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created both of them together. It makes a lot of sense. One was forward, one was backward. But if it was a tail, what's a forwards and backwards? Says the Gemara, explain to you. Man, Adam was first, was last in creation. He was created last. So what was created last on Sheshis Mei Bereshis? Not Adam. Shadim. But Shadim are invisible, so it's not really. Adam was created last. He was born, he was created all the way at the end. All the way at the end of the Yitzirah. And what is, he was first for disaster, for Puranos. He was the first to be cursed by the Eitz Hadas. First was the snake, then Chava. Well, let's say the Skal Adam. He was last. He was the first when it comes to the Malach Siv. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu first destroyed human beings, and then only afterwards the animals. Train Yudin. How do you write the word Vayitzer? One Yud. So why is it in the Torah it says two Yuds, Vayitzer with two Yuds? To teach us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created two, Adam and Chava. By the way, l'may nafkimina lahalacha, if Adam was created together with Chava or not, why is the Gemara discussing it? We could ask the question, it's not an nafkimina to us today. It is an nafkimina, l'maysa lahalacha. Do you make Sheva brachas or Shisha brachas? Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam and Chava together, then that's why we have Sheva brachas. Yetzer Adam twice for Adam and Chava. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. So, but if you say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't create Adam together with Chava, so what's the two Yuds? All he created was the extra tail. In other words, it's a lose-lose situation in this life. You either have to be concerned from the Yetzer Hara, but if you give in to the Yetzer Hara, you have to give in to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you give in to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Yetzer Hara is pounding you the entire day. Do the Aveira, do the Aveira. If you give in to him, you have to deal with HaKadosh Baruch Hu later. You don't give in to him, you have to deal with him. So you're always in a bad situation. Oili mi Yitzri, oili mi Yitzri. From my Creator and from my Yetzer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu literally created Adam and Chava on Erev Shabbos. Zochar Nekeva Bram. Elaman Omar Zonov. My Zochar Nekeva Bram. He didn't create a Nekeva at that time. It was later on. Look at the Rebavo Rami. Rebavo has the contradiction. Ksiv Zochar Nekeva Bram. Uchsiv B'Tzelem Elokim Bara Isai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu only created the Zochar. What's going on? It's contradiction. B'Tchila also b'Machshava Livros Shnayim. Rabbi Isai, as all Agadas, the Agadata has a lot of depth to it, and we could just read it on. But I want to point out a Maharal and the Ramban. They point to this Gemara. They say the Maharal uses a lashon that it's a tremendous secret, and it's not to be spoken about. But it's a big insight in life. This Gemara. That why is that Kodesh Baruch Hu created Adam and Chava together as one piece? Why didn't he create them like lions? A lion, a zachar, and a keva, 2 elephants. Because a lion has nothing to do with his wife. He could be with this one day, the next one, they have no connection. Human beings are meant to stay married. And what he did was, he created them together, that there's a yearning and a deep feel of connection to a wife. That's why he created them together. That's what it says. And I'm just being myself, like we say, Ishtoi kigufay. What does it mean? Kigufay. Because literally the woman was his guf. So now he's just finding that missing part. V'chulu. Betchila asar b'machshav livra shnayim u'lasoif l'nivra elo echad. This is a very deep Gemara that you need to understand. HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought if we wanted to, but then he decided not to. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have these things. It's not, everything is, he doesn't make mistakes or regret it, but it was supposed to be like the animals, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided they're going to be created together, separate them, and then they get married, they come back together again. Oh, now, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a massive surgery where there's a male and a female together, Adam and Chava together, and he chopped them down the middle, so there's a massive surgery. Vayiven, he has to rebuild the whole back, everything, the brain and the skull. There's a whole surgery. So that's why it says, Vayizgur basa tachtana. You take a little scissor, you go snip, and you go weiter. What's the big deal? What's the whole Vayiven? What is he building exactly after he snipped off the tail? Yeah, okay, fine. The Gemara didn't want to go there, but Lamais at the end of the day, it needed a little bit of surgery, a little plastic surgery. I think it's a little deeper, and I saw that Vilna Gaon says something like this also, that at the end of the day, we don't need a tail. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us with a tail. Look, if a monkey doesn't have a tail, he's in big trouble. He won't be able to catch on to this. It gives him balance. So it's not just HaKadosh Baruch Hu snipped and closed it off. Whatever that tail gave us, he said you don't need it anymore. He did something to the way we balance ourselves that we don't need it. So that's the Vayiven. Maybe that's the Pshat. So what exactly did it build with the tail? He braided her here. Amazing Gemara, we had this in Brachas. Baruch braided Chavas here, that she should look beautiful for Adam. Presented her, Shalom Aleichem, here's your wife. Works together with the word binyan, because in Karchayam, in Chutz La'aretz, they call a binyan braiding. Baruch Hu built her like a, what is it called? A sile, where you put the tefua. So it's wide on the bottom, and it gets narrow on the top, because if it was reversed, it would fall over, it wouldn't work. So a woman's body is built like that. Rashi says her womb is built like that. Not so much maybe but maybe the outside follows the inside, so that she could hold a baby. We're turning to Daf Yomi Amud Beis. Eli Nishmas Roiz Bas Minyamin. and to remind you that you could choose every day to make it a great day. Lilui Nishmas Mordechai Yosef ben Aaron Listhouse, sponsored by his son, not the first part. The first part is somebody else, anonymous. Another anonymous. Second part is Dr. Listhouse from Pennsylvania. Just like here, we're turning the daf. Here, Uncle Phil, we're turning the daf. And Fischl, turning the daf with the special turning the daf piece that I got by the Siyum. That's the best way, the silo, to have it wide on the bottom, narrow on the top. And I forgot, Daddy Kornbluth once was telling us in Shiur that that's the only way you could tell the difference between a human skeleton. If they find the human skeleton years later and they don't know if it's a zachar or nekeva, there's one way, I think, by the hips. The hips are the only way to the tell. Amazing. Kosh Baruch Hu took care of the wedding. He was misamech, says Rashi. He did everything. Mikan. From here you learn. Don't think, oh, you're so chashav, you shouldn't be oisik with these mundane things of chasanas. No, if Kosh Baruch Hu did it, he made a wedding for Adam and Chava, you could also help out. Who went first? In other words, who's in control? I think also with Siamese twins, one of them is like in control. So who walked first? Was it Chava walked in front and Adam walked backwards, or was it the opposite? It makes sense that the Zachar went first. Why? There's an issur for a man, and it's brought in the Shulchan Aruch, to walk behind a woman. Even your own wife. Now, your own wife is a different problem. The first problem is because of Eruvin, etc. But the problem with a wife, it's gnai. It doesn't look good. People don't realize they're going to say it's a gnai. So, if a Eishes Ish, you happen to be walking behind the Eishes Ish on a bridge, you have to overtake her and make sure you go in front of her. And if you walk behind the Eishes Ish in a river, because Rashi says she lifts up her dress a little bit so it doesn't get wet, but the legs are also erva, he will look. Why this extreme? I mean, Eishes Ish, I could hear. Staklos. So Taisis and Bracha says that a person that does this, he'll be used to it, and then he'll get involved in worse things. It's not this one time that he looked. But bottom line is, think about it for a second. Adam and Chava weren't clothed at all. There's nobody else in the world. There's no gnai. And Adam didn't even see Chava. He's back to back there. He's looking the opposite direction. Yet the Gemara says, because in our days, you're not supposed to walk behind the woman. So it doesn't make sense that in the time of creation, time of the Brias Adam, when there was nobody else, it doesn't make sense that Adam walked behind Chava. Because of the Shtalshalus Hadvar, how it's going to happen later in generations, it doesn't make sense that he did it the reverse. All sugis that we had in brachas. If a person deliberately puts money, starts counting it slowly, he has an agenda. Bishvil sheistakaba, so he could gaze. Afilu, I'm saying gaze because it's different than looking. There's a look that you look and you look away, but there's gazing. Afilu doim lo Moshe Rabbeinu shekivu haTorah ma'Har Sinai, even if it's the Moshe Rabbeinu that accepted the Torah, the greatest of the great, lo yinokim medina shel Gehenim, he's going to get Gehenim. V'alav hakos v'omer yod liyod lo yinokim ra. It's like a hint. Yod liyod, you give money from hand to hand, lo yinokim ra. If you have the wrong intent, you're not going to be able to get away from Gehenim. Lo yinokim medina shel Gehenim. Omer Rav Nachman, Monoyach am haaretz haya. Monoyach was am haaretz. Shenemar. Vayakam. Anybody remember the sugya? I mean, it's literally word for word. Vayakam vayelach Monoyach achri yishtoi. He went behind his wife. He must have been am haaretz. Maskal Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Whoa. So Elamata, all over the Torah where it says that a person went behind his wife, he's an am haaretz. Gabel Kana. D'chsiv vayelach al Kana achri yishtoi. Hachanami. V'gabel Elisha Navi. D'chsiv vayakam vayelach achrei. He went behind her. Hachanami, Ella, we must explain. Achri dvarev atzasa. He took her advice, not that he walked physically behind her. Hachanami, achri dvarev atzasa. So Menoyach was not Amaretz. He was just taking his wife's advice. Omer Rav Ashi, I have a bigger kasha. L'may Omer Rav Nachman Menoyach. Amaretz haya You want to tell me the Menoich was Amaretz? That can't be. Afilu Beibarav Nami Lo Kara. He's not even in second grade level. Every little kid knows the Chsiv. You learn it in Bereshis in pre 1a. The woman goes behind Eliezer. So what? Menoich didn't know the second grade level. Okay, he wasn't a tremendous Talmid Chacham, even according to you, but at least he should be on a second grade level. So it doesn't make sense that he didn't know that halacha. Therefore, it doesn't make sense. He wasn't Namar. You're better off walking behind the lion than walking behind the woman, because you're going to come to an Avera. However, the Avera of Avodah Zarah is worse than Eishes Ish, taking away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is crazy. It's better to walk behind Avodah Zarah and maybe be Nichshal Avodah Zarah than to walk behind the shul. We had a whole sugi in brachas. When the Klal Yisrael is in shul davening, you're walking behind, you're showing you don't want to have anything to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Provided that there's only one shul in the city, there's a whole bunch of conditions. But you doing that is worse than Avodah Zarah. At least Avodah Zarah, you might be able to be Mishtat of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and your Getchka. But over here you're saying there's no HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's nothing. I don't want to go, I don't want to be there. And the Ian Yankov says on this Gemara, he says that it's worse than that. Listen to this. I don't want to be a big hypocrite here, because I'm nichshel on this. Worse than that is going into shul and talking. If you talk in shul, it's worse than not going into shul, which is worse than Avodah Zarah. Because you're going into shul and you're saying, I don't care about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm just talking. I don't care. He's here and I don't care. And by the way, I always wanted to say that. I didn't have the guts to say it, but I saw it on that website on stopthetalking.org, Rav Gav, because he doesn't care. He just said it. He said an interesting. I was walking with my wife and we were in a tour and we walked into a place and it was very quiet and it says just like a church. And the guy says, yeah, because it is a church. So the idea is, I don't know too much about churches, but every time you see like there's that square thing, I forgot what it's called, the TV or something, they show like the church, people are always quiet there. Always quiet, and it's a big sanegar for us, that they go there and they don't talk, and we, Rahman al-Islam, we go. Anyway, Omar Rabbi Yerim ben Elazar. What's that? Oh, I didn't say those words. Okay? What is it? Aleph? Okay? When Adam Rishon was put in a nidui, in a chayrim, hoylid ruchim b'shedim v'lilin, he gave birth to all these shedim. We know shedim are like half human, half not, the ones that were at the final stage of B'rias ha'olam and they got stuck over there. Like his mus, like his tzal, until then, it wasn't like his tzelim. Adam Rishon was a great chassid. When he realized that Misa, death, he brought death to this world. Nobody would have died if he wouldn't have sinned with Eis Das. So he fasted for 130 years. And he separated from Chava. You see that he was doing Chuvas HaMishkal. He did everything, what his Aveir was, he did the opposite. So he was nichshal by eating whatever fruit he ate. Machlokes in the Gemara was chita, anavim, not an apple. So he didn't eat. He was in a tightness. He was nichshal because of his wife. He separated his wife. He was nichshal with a fig. According to this man, that was a fig. So he wore fig clothing. So how did he give birth? He wasn't with his wife for 130 years. How could he have children? How could he have shadim? Says the Gemara. It's an amazing Gemara. I never noticed this. This could explain a whole sugya that we're not very familiar with. People wonder, what's the big Avera? This could shed a little light on it. That Shichva Zera, you think, okay, it's nothing. It goes into the garbage, whatever. No, a shade is born from it. That's the problem. It was La'inus. He had La'inus. It wasn't B'mezid. but the Einus turned into Shadim. It's a crazy idea. You don't know what's going on, but it happens to be that you caused Shadim in the world. You say only part of a person's praise in front of him. But not in front of him, then you can say, I don't know what, I guess the Chafetz Chaim talks about this, because you're not supposed to talk about people, even to say they're shvach, bolignus. Okay, I didn't look it up, but he does have a thing on it. So you're not supposed to say, Akash Baruch Hu, in front of Noach, only said part of the praise, not the whole thing. All he said that you're a tzaddik. He tells him to his face, you are a tzaddik. You're the only tzaddik. What does Akash Baruch say about Noach, not in front of him? Noach ish tzaddik tamim. He was a perfect tzaddik. In case you don't know what it looks like, right? Why? What's this Ali Zayis? The Yoina brought Ali Zayis in her mouth. I rather have, and I told you this, I didn't have the wrong corn with me at the time, unfortunately, and I was on a Tehilim in Eretz Yisrael, and I saw a nice olive tree on the way. It was like hefker. I said, you know what? Let me taste what a raw olive tastes like. The worst mistake I ever made in my life. It's the most vile, disgusting thing you've ever tasted in your life. Last night, I decided to Google it. So I Googled bitter olive or something. It says, Rabbi Say, there's a special chemical in an olive that animals shouldn't eat it. I forgot what it's called. It destroys your mouth. It'll stay in your mouth for 4 hours. You can't get it out. The Ronam, right? You know what I'm talking about? Tourists like to do that, right? Grab it off the tree and then they cry for 2 hours. Listen, it's not that bad. I got bitten by a jellyfish. It was worse. Fine. Don't eat it. And we figured out how to make olives, and the olives that we have today taste great because we removed that thing. Says the Gemara, my mizayna should be is bitter, but the pigeon doesn't know how to do it. The pigeon is left with that disgusting olive that you can't taste. I'd rather have that olive, and that's why she brought the olive to Akash Baruch Hu. If it comes from you directly, everybody, you hear what she's saying? If it comes from you directly, everybody, shalom, I want it more than what comes from a human being, the sweetest of the sweet. I don't want any taivas from humans. I don't want taivas from Noach. I want it from you. Teref. It says over here, it was plucked. Right? It's one of those songs we sing on Shabbos. Lechem chugi hatrifeini. Yeah, it's the opposite. Okay, lechem chugi hatrifeini. That you should feed me bread. That's what right? Yisrael, you never knew what you said your whole life. You didn't know what hatrifeini means. Now you know. You knew what it means? He knew what it means because he does the daf 5 hours a day. Hatrifeini should feed me bread. So that's what it means. Because Baruch should feed me full day. נשמע מקלידים נזדרים כשזה כל כך נוי אם אבא תשמעו יו אדינוי מי עמוי תבחן סליחו למען תבורי כפי זה אדינוי כבשון נפשי לא יכולתי נפשי אדינוי שמרים לבויקר אחרי ישראל אדינוי כמי אדינוי החסד והבאים מאוד פדוש No, I mean, you know what this is. You guys know what this is. This is his brother was in our shiur for a while. The guy with the pits, Yitzi Fine. His brother's Uri Fine. Everybody from the night shiur knows him. He wears tefillin a lot, and for whatever reason, he's in the hospital. He can't get out of it. Unconscious, not conscious. I don't even. So you should have a refuah shleima. Unmute? Is that what's going on here? Oh.
What was the last thing, Eli, what was the last thing created?
Shadim. I'm saying people think it's Adam Rishon, it's really Shadim, but it's not real. It's a trick question. You know, it's a trick question. What? What'd you say? I hear. There was a question in Parshas Noach that I won a set of Svarim. There was a whole group of people in Ramat Hanan and Bnei Brak. We used to do a test on the Parshas Shavua, and it was Parshas Noach, and they would ask a question. If you didn't know, they took you out of the group. They started with 150 kids, and they just asked questions until you're left with like 1 or 2 kids. And so the final question was, and I got this right, Baruch Hashem, that's how I got it. What else was on the teva besides animals and garbage? Everybody said zevel and what else was on it? Dov, you should know the answer. You need to know the answer, my friend Dov. Who just said that? Somebody just said it. Zev Roth said it. Shadim. It's the same answer. Shadim. Shadim were on the teva. Rashi. That's a Rashi in Parshas Noach. I got a Chamisha Chushmei Torah. What did you say?
What creation was not on the table?
Not on the teva? Oig Melech HaBoshan?
No.
A bracha? Mazeh. Oh, you mean it's a new creation? You're talking about those guys that get up at 4 in the afternoon and they look at you like you fell off the moon? They have a sad face all the time. Mm-hmm.
People cannot unmute themselves.
Avi Rosen knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Like that,
not the ones in the mirror.
some of them that seek in and work out, do Daf Yomi.
That's right.
Great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Oh, now everybody can. Listen, there's always an exception to the rule. Avi, there's always an exception to the rule. Lauren, you got the. Oh, did he leave?